Colors. Halt. Present. Colors.
Okay, do we have Lauren O'Kane, Savannah Witzel with us?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Carry. Colors. Mark time. March. Right turn. March. Forward. March.
Father Terry Johnson, if you could come to the podium, please.
Let us pray. In the quiet sanctuaries of our own hearts, let each of us name and call on the one whose power over us is great and gentle, firm and forgiving, holy and healing. You who created us, who sustain us, who call us to live in peace, hear our prayer this day. Hear our prayer for all who have died, whose hearts and hopes are known to you alone. Hear our prayer for those who put the welfare of others ahead of their own, and give us hearts as generous as theirs. Hear our prayer for those who gave their lives in the service of others, and accept the gift of their sacrifice. Help us here gathered tonight to shape and make a world where we will lay down the arms of war and turn our swords into plowshares for a harvest of justice and peace. Comfort those who grieve the loss of their loved ones, and let your healing be the hope in their hearts. Hear our prayer this day, and in your mercy answer us in the name of all that is holy. And to all this we say, Amen.
Please have a seat. I apologize, folks. One item left before we continue. If we could have the scouts just escort anybody who needs seating to the left side of the room, I'd appreciate it. Any veterans? Yes. I apologize. It's just like church. We've got plenty of seats open in front. Down here, yes, sir, right? Over here to the left as well. Okay, my apologies for the oversight. If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd ask that the students from Mother Teresa Catholic Academy and any other kids who want to come up and be a part of the Pledge of Allegiance, we'd appreciate it. Please come up front. Please be seated.
Seats back here, guys.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this evening, for joining in our program. This is the 9th annual Park Forest Veterans Day recognition ceremony. And I know that there is probably others once upon a time, but this one's been 9 years running that we've been doing. As we get underway with the program, I'd like to defer to our senior trustee, May Brandon, who's going to give some welcoming comments. May, if you would.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And again, welcome to our 9th Park Forest Veterans Day recognition. And it was 9 years ago that one of our residents came and asking what could we do to recognize our veterans. She had a son, still has a son that's in the Marine Corps. And after a couple of other mothers who had sons serving in the service came together and collaborated to begin this event. It was, I'm going to have to look so I don't forget anyone's names. But Betty Dew, whose son is in the Marine Corps, along with Minerva Wiley, who unfortunately is no longer with us, and I think she would be very pleased that we still continue to carry on this tradition. Bonita Dillard, whose son at that time was in the Army, Judy Lancaster, whose son was in the Army, and Barbara Moore, whose grandson was in the Marine Corps. So they all got together and collaborated to begin this event, and I think it's been a very good thing. Each year, we've seen more and more people come out and participate. And I think one of the great things about this event is that our young people participate. From the little ones up, we have an Eagle Scout young man who's going to be participating in the program today, and then we have a person who's a Tuskegee Airman who will be participating. So we've got, the spectrum in terms of age. I think it's so important that we teach our children the importance of this day, what it's all about. I work with children, and I asked some of the children with whom I work why they were not going to be in school on Monday. And, I got all sorts of answers, and then I got some that said, veterans or something. So, they kind of came up with the name of it. So I was like, what does that mean? And I got a little frowns and the Army but bottom line is that they were not able to succinctly identify the purpose of this day. And I think it's very important that we teach our children about the day. Don't depend upon our school system, which has an array of things that they're trying to get across to our children. But I think it's up to you and I to let them know why this day is so important, that we honor those who've come before us, who've given up their very lives and their families to protect us so that we can continue to live in this country the way that we do, regardless of whether you agree with each other or don't agree with us. it's still a great country to be in. And the freedoms that we have are because of so many people who came before us and gave their lives so that we could live in this country freely. So let's teach our children about the history. And I think for those of you who have been in the service, then, you provide that personal experience for them so they have a better understanding. So it's really, I feel very passionate about it. My husband is, as they say, is a Marine, because there's no such thing as a person who was a Marine. And we have many family members who've served in the service, and many of whom are no longer with us. There will come a time when we will not have any World War II veterans with us, and I think our children should understand their importance. There'll be a time when there will be many of those who've served in the wars previous that will not be with us. So let's keep up the tradition, and let's make sure that we pass it on and teach our children about it. So I want to thank the committee who continues to carry on this tradition, and thank all of you for coming out, and thank those who are participating on our program too. Without you, we would not have this program. So thank to all of you, and welcome again.
Thank you, Trustee. The next part of our program is an educational component. Park Forest resident Marcus Timberlake, Marcus, if you could come up to the podium, is going to provide an educational insight on how to properly retire an American flag. It's been my experience that I would guess that most people don't know what the proper etiquette is. I think it's really a timely presentation. We've got a bit of a oral presentation, and then we've got about a 6.5-minute video from when we actually coordinated a retirement of an American flag a few weeks back. We didn't think we could do it inside Village Hall. The fire department said that was something we couldn't do. So what we're going to do at first is hear from Marcus, and then we're going to ask that the lights be dimmed. Trustee Brown, if you could shut off the lights there once we're ready, and then if Phil in the back, if you could shut those lights off as well, so that everybody can see the video. Marcus, the stage is yours.
Good evening. My name is Marcus Timberlake. I'm a lifelong resident of Park Forest and a lifeguard of Troop 120 in Madison, Illinois. I'm here tonight to talk to you about the proper way of retiring the American flag when it becomes worn, tattered, faded, and no longer to be flown. There are several points which are common in planning just about any flag retirement ceremony, which include an opening and greeting, final respects for the colors, disposal of the colors, other respects, and the closing. There are actually several ways to retire an American flag. The traditional way is to incinerate the flag, but that does not mean that you should simply drop the entire flag in the fire intact. The method that I use when holding a flag retirement ceremony here in Park Forest on Saturday, October 26th, was to cut the flag into pieces. A flag ceases to be a flag when a flag is cut into pieces. We cut the red and white strips, leaving the blue star field in shape. The red stripes remind us of the lifeblood of brave men and women who were ready to die for their country. The white stripes remind us of purity and cleanliness of purpose, thought, word, and deed. And the blue is for the truth and justice, just like the eternal blue of the star-filled heavens. The stars represent the 50 sovereign states of our union. The reason that we do not cut the star field is that it represents the union of the 50 states, and we should never let the union be broken. Other methods of retiring the flag consist of folding it and gently placing it into the pit, metal to drum, or incinerator, whichever you choose to use. Whichever ceremonies you choose to use, remember, the flag should be retired with all the dignity and respect befitting our nation's flag. Individuals come to attention, salute the flag, recite the Pledge of Allegiance, and have a brief period of silent reflection. After the flag is completely consumed in a sizable fire with sufficient intensity to ensure a complete burning of the flag, the fire should then be safely extinguished and the ashes buried. You should make sure that you are conforming to the local and state fire codes or ordinances. I now invite you to turn your attention to a video of a flag retirement ceremony that was conducted in Park Forest a couple of weeks ago.
Trustee, if you would. Phil, please.
U.S. flag is more than just some brightly colored cloth. It is a symbol of our nation. 7 red stripes and 6 white stripes together represents the 13 original colonies that gained us liberty. The red stripes remind us of the lifeblood of brave men and women who were ready to die for this, their country. The white stripes remind us of purity and cleanliness of purpose, thought, word, and deed. The blue is for truth and justice, like the eternal blue of the star-filled heavens. The stars represent the 50 sovereign states of our union. The American Creed states, "It is my duty to my country to love it, to respect its Constitution, to obey its laws, to respect its flag, and to defend it against all enemies." The U.S. flag should be treated with respect when it's flying and should be treated with respect when it is being retired. Therefore, we retire this flag with dignity and respect when they become torn, worn, faded, or badly soiled. The traditional way to retire a flag is to incinerate it. That doesn't mean we simply drop the entire flag into a fire. Rather, the flag is retired in a manner that is dignified and respectful. Remember, we are retiring a symbol of America's honor, courage, and strength. Our flag ceases to be a flag when it is cut into pieces. We separate the 13 strips that represent the original 13 colonies. We leave the blue field of 50 stars as one piece, since it represents the union of the 50 states that together make up this great nation, and that union should never be broken. The flag has served its nation long and well, and it has worn to a condition to which it should no longer be used to represent the nation. We salute this flag one last time. Retire this American flag. Scouts, you take your positions. Each be given a piece of the flag to carry slowly and silently to the fire. Remember that this is a solemn event. At the siren effect, please gently drop your flag piece onto the fire. Do not throw it, but lightly toss it onto the fire. Everyone should be silent and thoughtful throughout this ceremony. thank you for respectfully participating in this flag retirement ceremony. As you leave this event, I encourage each of you to remember what the American flag stands for and all the men and women over the years that have given their lives to uphold its values and defend it.
Have the lights, please. Moving on with our program, I'd like to call on Tuskegee Airman Mr. Virgil Poole, if you could come up to the podium, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You know, there are a lot of things that move you, and some things don't even bother you. But honored celebrations such as this one bother me because I feel that I'm the honored one here. And I feel like I've done such a little bit in comparison to what so many people had to do. But I'm grateful to have been invited here for this purpose. This is a suburb I moved to from Chicago. I lived in Park Forest South since I came in 1983, and then I decided I wanted to be active in the law enforcement area. So I went to Country Club and became the trial judge advocate over there. And then I began to realize there was something different that I could do. I noticed some things I didn't particularly care about being conducted by growns and adults. And I felt that I was trained and I should do my part. So I volunteered to do what I do now. I go about trying to alert people to what the Tuskegee Airmen really was all about. Many people know that it originally was called 99th Squadron X, and the X stood for experimental. And I say this with no disdain, disgrace, nor shame to anybody, because if the truth bothers you, you're in a bad shape to begin with. But the thought that there was a method of person alive in the greatest nation in the world who would say that any living person created by Almighty God was not qualified to fly an airplane. They stated we didn't have the necessary education, we didn't have the right attitude, and it was going to be a failure. I didn't believe that until I got to North Africa, and General John Cannon, commander of the 12th Air Force, told my commander, General Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., well, at least we'll have an opportunity to prove that you guys can't fly. That was the greatest move, I guess, ever happened by any general in the Army, because what he did, he put in the heart of every one of us, most especially me, because I'd never been in an airplane in my life. We proved that we could fly because it was discovered that there were 3 African American colleges that taught aviation, and the instances were over 15 years old prior to World War II. So that was the crux of the beginning of the 9-Knife Squadron X. But the word seemed to get around that these guys must be pretty good, because our class got the highest grades ever scored by a flight training class in the history of the Air Force. And I think that opened up everybody's eyes and world, and we all made up our minds. God eliminated the need for any individual to attempt to become equal. I think I read 7 times in the Bible where God spoke up and mentioned the fact he set his equality on earth in a direct replica of himself, in appearance, in style, in attitude, intelligence, and to save the salvation of the world. So I try my best now. I don't address myself to all Afro-American groups, because they aren't the only ones that don't know what's going on. I insist almost, please, if I'm going to give them the honor to address a group, please let me address all who need to know the truth, what really transpired. We are the first Afro-American fighter squadron in the history of the United States Air Force. We are the first fighter escort group to ever escort bombers to the target, go up and wait for the command from the bomb group leader to tell us, okay, fellas, let's go home. And we came down and sat down on them and brought them back home. Out of 14 flights from Berlin, from Cattolica, Italy, we made, and we didn't lose dust. Not one single bomber was lost in those flights. And I think that was the beginning of a whole new era for the world to realize and appreciate. I know it gave me faith, both my parents, both of whom had taught me. I'm 92 years old now, and I think I was 7 years old when they gave me this pep talk. Don't think because you're going to be a straight A student, that's going to be the final accomplishment. You're going to live to see an Afro-American become the president of the greatest nation in the world. And I think we've seen that. So now I have no story to tell about anything that I didn't like about anything that transpired. Because God spared me here for some purpose. I didn't deserve this longevity because I lived a terrible life. I was wild as they come. Married 3 times. 25 years to the first wife. Then I married Joe Louis, who's the world heavyweight champion's brother's ex-wife, because she was such a smart, beautiful New Orleans lady. And she about developed a bossy attitude from somebody. And my father and I never agreed on that. So that marriage only lasted 6 years. Then I saw heaven on earth. I saw the most beautiful, most desirable individual God had created. And I asked her one time, would you marry me? She said, I wonder how long it was going to take you. Because you've told everybody in the world but me. So this is the 41st year I've been married to this lady. And they asked me, how do you last so long? I says, you marry a girl younger than you. But seriously, my purpose in wanting to address groups such as this one, I feel extremely honored to have the pleasure to relate to people who I know understand what I'm saying, and people who I know, like myself, have learned to exist irregardless of race, color, size, belief, or whatever, because we're supposedly worshiping God, and I don't think He's restricted His worshipers. So I've lived to see just a wonderful life, and I hope I don't have any burning to do, but I got some coming, I guess, because I lived an unkind life. I married two beautiful women before I married to my present wife, and I wasn't fair to either one of them. But I've been very fruit of this one now, because she told me, if you're not good to me, you're going to come home one day to an empty house. And I haven't been found the empty house yet. And I bought two since I've been up here, and they're still pretty full, so I'm doing right. But let me extend to you my services in any capacity you feel that I can serve you, because I believe that's God's purpose in letting me survive this long, because He knows. I established a gang crime unit in the police department in Chicago where I was the chief of police. I came up as chief of Harvey, tried to do the same thing, but things didn't go correctly to satisfy me, and I asked to be retired from there. And then I voluntarily offered my services to render gratis truth about a name that is given to a group of black Americans who, for some ridiculous reason that I've never had anyone explain to me, formed a club and called themselves the Dodo Club. And if any of you know anything about birds, dodo bird is a black bird who cannot fly. And I'm waiting now for some brilliant individual to tell me how they arrived at that name for a club, which I have little or nothing to do with. And I'm with the Tuskegee Airmen. And I'm here to serve you in any way I can. Church, school, home, whatever. I got a PhD of my own in gangs and violence. I was a chief of safety and security for the city of Chicago for public housing for 10 years. And I ridded public housing in Chicago of gangs, because if they belonged to the gang, over 3 weeks after I made the announcement what was going to happen, we didn't have any more of them there. And that went for Robert Taylor, Cabrini Green, all of them. And I used the same knowledge that I acquired and was appointed by Secretary of HUD, who happened to have been an African-American girl who used to live next door to me in Chicago. And when she found out I was working on gangs and violence and so forth, she asked Mayor Daley, could he loan me to her? And he loaned me to her, and I worked 6 months for HUD, and all I did was try to prove to parents that their responsibility is not those we're blaming on our children. we have our children destroying one another. That's not God's intention, nor is anybody else's. That's our intention. Why? Because we accept the Cadillacs, the Lincolns, the homes, the mink coats, the diamonds, and everything the kids bring home, we take them and flaunt them. And it's not right. And I don't believe in that, and I work against it constantly. And I want all of you to call upon me whenever you feel I can be of service to you, and I'd be honored. And I hope I'll be here to last long enough to serve a whole bunch of you. So I'll give my address and telephone number and everything to them. And if ever I can be of service to you, and I'm just so happy to see a mixed group. And let me help you, please. Thank you. God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Poole. I'd like to call on Kathy Senzota, who is head of the Volunteers Division at the Manteno Veterans Home in Manteno, Illinois. Kathy, if you would please come to the podium.
First of all, I'd like to thank you all for inviting me up here and be a part of your Veterans Day program. Of course, I'm not real happy about having to follow Virgil because he always does such a really good speech, and then I have to follow him, and then I have to try and live up to those standards, but I'll do the best I can. Anyway, I come from the Veterans Home in Manteno, about 25 miles south of here. We have a state-run facility, the Illinois Veterans Home at Manteno. I've been there since it opened in 1986. I wanted to give you a little background information on the home, just so that in case you didn't know anything about it. Our Veterans Home is comprised of about 282 veterans. Let me see, I'll get my statistics here. About 19 of them are females, 263 are male. Our average age is 84. Our oldest veteran is 101. Her name is Clara, and her birthday is next week. She'll be 101. And our youngest veteran is 52. As far as the veteran status goes, after 25 years of being there, we finally are seeing a decrease of about 10% in World War II veterans, which is what May was speaking about with World War II veterans. We have 148 World War II veterans at the Veterans Home. We have 4 that are World War II and Korea. We have 78 Korea, 1 Korea and Vietnam, 50 Vietnam, and 1 Gulf. So that's kind of how our home is built up. We have 5 units. One of them is an Alzheimer's unit. It's our locked unit. And there are 3 ways that you can get into the Veterans Home. You had to have enlisted in the state of Illinois. You had to have served during actual wartime, although that has been modified some. We do accept veterans that did not serve during wartime, but served during peacetime, but they are only taken care of after our wartime veterans have had a place in the home first. And they require 2 hours of skilled care a day, as attested by a physician. So those are the 3 ways that a veteran can come into our home. If they're living in Florida now, but they meet all that criteria for when they want to be admitted, then they can come back from Florida and live in our home in Illinois. So that's a little bit about what happens out there. I'd also like to say that we're very fortunate to have a lot of community groups and veterans organizations that have adopted us, so to speak, since 1986 and provide a lot of extra things that the state does not provide. Given us money to buy vehicles to take members to, and we call them members, not veterans, but to take members to dinners and bingo parties, concerts, picnics, anything like that. They increase our ability to buy better medical equipment and provide the veterans things that they normally wouldn't be able to do. We also have a lot of support from our motorcycle clubs in the facility or in the area. We have a lot of them that are veterans themselves, and they too have done a lot of fundraisers and things to enhance the quality of life for our veterans. So I come here tonight to let you know that we are always looking for new volunteers, new children that would like to do community service. I think one of the best things that schools have done is to almost mandate that they do some type of community service. We've had a lot come through our doors, and I think the future is with the children. They need to know what's going on with what the previous veterans, so that they can better take care of the veterans that are going to come their way in the future. So I always encourage them to come out. We have a variety of programs. Now that it's getting to be winter, it's going to be obviously more indoor programs, but they can always do things like assist with a bingo party, come and sing, provide some type of entertainment for the veterans. I think they would get as much out of it as the veterans do. And of course, I always encourage the adults and the other people in the community to do the very same thing. We have a lake at our home, and it's probably one of the newest additions to our facility. And unfortunately, our facility is kind of sprawled out because it's in the country, and we're not always able to use the lake as much as possible because we have to bring the units by foot from their, where they're living all the way to the front of the facility where the lake is located. So I'm going to suggest that if anybody wants to do any kind of certain project in the future, in the summer or whatever, if you're interested in coming out, doing a little fishing trip with the veterans, pushing their chairs, even if the veteran maybe doesn't want to fish, just being with them and talking to them and getting them a pop or whatever would be a great opportunity to participate in their lives, at the facility that they will live at till like the end of their lives. I brought some books. These are, I think they're in here. Hold on. I'm going to leave a couple of these here. This is our home front. We put it out quarterly. It's got a lot of pictures of different organizations, groups, families, a variety of different things that kind of explains what we do at the home. It also has a wish list at the back of it. This wish list lets you know what kind of things we could use out there, say toothbrushes, toothpaste, coffee, candy. Of course, they all love candy, so anytime there's a sale at Walgreens or wherever after Christmas or after Halloween, that would be a good thing to do. But a lot of groups do kind of fundraisers. They do some kind of a collection, churches and things like that. So those items are expressed in there. So I guess tonight what I'd like to do is just thank you all for having me, taking an interest in the veterans, and offer you the opportunity to become a part of the Illinois Veterans Home if at any time anybody has the desire to do that. And I'll be here afterwards if anybody wants to talk to me about that, and I'll leave some of these books if you'd like to take them to your classrooms, workplaces, or whatever. Does anybody have any questions about the home, just in case? Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy. As we start to move towards close with our ceremony tonight, I'd like to wrap up with some closing comments. First, I'd like to thank our program committee who helped develop tonight's ceremony. In particular, I'd like to thank Jason Miller and Fire Captain Mike Wheeler, who were instrumental in assisting Marcus Timberlake in putting together his wonderful presentation this evening. You may have noticed the wind that was in the background of that video. I think the wind was whipping around 20 to 25 miles an hour. And the scouts that morning, I thought, did a really good job of being patient, coming out on a cold, it was an October morning, but it seemed like it was probably late November. So thanks to Jason and to Captain Wheeler for their contribution. I can't say enough about the programming that we've put together this evening, but it's a part of a committee that made it all happen. The entire programming committee is noted on the back of the program, but I'd ask that all of our programming committee personnel, if they could stand to be recognized this evening, I'd appreciate it. Next, I'd like to thank Mr. Poole for his comments. In my opinion, Mr. Poole epitomizes what I believe Veterans Day is all about. It's folks like Mr. Poole, John Ryan, some of our older veterans who are in the audience with us. It's those men and women that have served our country so many years ago and have made our country the great place that it is today. Folks that served back in the World Wars, Korea, up into the Vietnam era. No disrespect to the younger veterans in the room. I'm one of them myself. But we'll have our day down the road. I believe that Veterans Day really goes for those folks that served years ago to give us all that we have nowadays. Marcus, I'd like to commend you for what you did this evening as far as adding a wonderful component to our program. I believe that there's a number of people that will leave the room tonight knowing something they didn't know previously on how to properly retire or dispose of a worn or tattered American flag. Related to the American flag, as we adjourn tonight, I'd encourage each of you to stop by one of the tables in the lobby. The Village of Park Forest is going to give out American flags to everybody that's in attendance. It's my hope the limit is one person or one flag per person. If you've got 5 people from one house, you get 5 for that house. But please, what I'd ask is that if you take a flag, please make a concerted effort to actually go out and display it. Put it in your front lawn, display it in your window over this weekend and Veterans Day on Monday. As a community, Park Forest was founded for military service persons returning from World War II. It would only seem fitting to me that Park Forest would have as many flags as possible adorning the front lawns of our community this weekend. I'd also ask if you do take a flag and you do display it this weekend, take it down, put it away, and then put it back up in 2014. Memorial Day, Flag Day, Independence Day, and then again in Veterans Day next fall. My hope is that we'll do something similar again next year. We'll do the same thing. And ultimately my goal is I always have these grand visions that we'll have flags in everybody's front yard because I think it's the proper thing to do. So I ask that you do that tonight if you do take a flag when you leave. On another note of thank, it's no secret to many of you that I served in the Marine Corps from 1988 to 1992. As a combat veteran from Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm, I was able to obtain my undergraduate degree and my graduate coursework courtesy of the Illinois Veterans Grant. That's a tremendous thank you that I earned from our state, and I've made great use of it to put together a career that I have now. While the state of Illinois gets its rightful share of criticism for any number of things that they are doing wrong in Springfield, and we could have a long conversation about both sides of that, I have to say when it comes to veterans benefits, I think our state does a tremendous job. The educational benefits that I personally took advantage of and have used are just one example. I think the Manteno Veterans Retirement Home is another fine example. Kathy's comments tonight in her presentation hopefully opened eyes for people that are in attendance, people who may be watching from home. I've seen it firsthand, having been to the retirement home. It is a top-notch facility. How they go about serving the needs of our veterans, it's not one of these facilities where it's one staff person per 40 veterans. That's not the case. It is tremendous. I've been to that lake. I've been to all the different wings that are out there. Pass the word on. I think you guys do a tremendous job. I'd also want to recognize the American Legion because they continually support the Veterans Manteno, the Veterans Retirement Home in Manteno, hosting veterans out to their facility, coordinating fundraisers, donation drives, etc. It's my hope that with our program this evening being shown on cable access television across Park Forest and to be rebroadcast in the weeks and months ahead, I'd like to see that we could do something to assist with some of the collections of items that you've mentioned this evening. I do believe we have plenty of movers and shakers in the audience tonight, whether it be with schools, service clubs, etc. I'm hoping over the next several months we'll be able to bring plenty of supplies to the Veterans Home in Manteno so that Park Forest can do its fair share to support the veterans. The final detail that I'd like to note related to the theme of appreciation is that I recently learned that the state of Illinois offers bonuses for war veterans who served in a combat theater, be it in World War II, Korea, Desert Storm, or in the global war on terrorism. I've been out of the military now for more than 20 years, and I have to say I didn't know that such a benefit exists. I just learned about it this past summer. My sons and I got to have lunch with a Marine Corps Master Gunnery Sergeant who is still in active duty. I went to grade school with this guy and just found out a few years ago that he was still serving his career in the Marines. So I was taking him out to lunch. I thought it was the least that we could do to convey our appreciation for someone serving our country. And as I'm talking to him, he says, you qualify for $100. I think anybody would say, okay, what's the trick with that? So I did some research on it, and there's actually a program through the Illinois Veterans Program. If you served in a combat zone or a combat theater in any of the campaigns that I mentioned previously, you can apply. All you've got to do is fill out a form, attach your DD-214, and submit it. As far as those details go, we have packets of information related to that in the lobby this evening. I would encourage people to take them. It's on the same table where you could pick up a flag, and if it's for yourself as a veteran, take one. If you know of a veteran, take it to them. For anybody who may be watching from home, if you need more details, contact me at Village Hall. I'll gladly pass on the information. The other thing that I thought was really interesting in the conversation I had with this Master Gunnery Sergeant, his name is Rich Schroka. When I was in the Marines, I rose to the rank of a corporal. And I don't think I ever really worried more than anybody outside of my platoon, my battery, and the artillery. This man has risen to probably the top 5% of the entire Marine Corps, which is about 210,000 men and women. And he was discussing with me the business of the Marine Corps, something when I was 19 or 20 years old I could not fathom. I could not grasp that concept. Obviously now in my career where I'm at, we talk about budgets all the time and what we've got to cut and what we've got to do. But it was really something for me to have lunch with that young man, or that Marine now, who I remember as a second grader in my community. So I'd encourage people to take those forms and to pursue their benefits to the fullest extent possible. In closing, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out tonight to recognize Veterans Day. I'd also like to offer a heartfelt thank you to all veterans who are in attendance or who may be watching from home. This coming weekend, I wish all Marine Corps alumni a happy birthday as this Sunday, as our beloved Marine Corps turns 238. That's this Sunday, November 10th. As we close out our program tonight, I'd ask that everybody join as we stand and join us in singing of God Bless America.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.